Well, hello everyone. Here to talk about you for parents though. This right here will be right here are some sketches I went and put together right here to talk about with the parents. And it could be what you call maybe parents related to like you, maybe financial needs or anything like that, or anything that maybe anybody would maybe want to list as reference or anything like that. References could maybe mean people who are not related to you, but you are pretty close to them as friends. That you may met them, may have been pretty close to them, maybe at your job or something like that. But this activity right here talks about right here of like shows right here or like some sketches right here of like the parents. They would be young, and if anybody weren't or that any of your parents that thinking that to where if it's going to be the mom or the dad and about for the day is like that they have a son, your son by name of Matthew, and like with me though, and I'm like thinking about anybody that may weren't or that like I may have mentioned before a number of times is to where that anything that think about is to where anything that relates to like mail or anything like that, that more likely it's in my name, and you're like thinking about is to where that you may have seen it a number of times, maybe when at mommy and daddy. I'm like if mommy and daddy that they would be taking care of the bills and expenses as well, and then by the time a child that becomes 18 or older or so, that they start taking care of it. And sometimes like if we're going to be taking care of a bill, and sometimes, a lot of times, they'll like say that if they'll be calling or maybe send you any emails or anything like that for any reason, and more likely that they may think as to where we need to talk to the person who's paying for it, especially. But on your hand, a lot of times anybody who's going to be maybe on Facebook or so, or maybe on LinkedIn, you're like warrant or that for who knows about who that they're wanting to speak to or so. But thinking about is to where that anybody maybe with a business card especially. But you have right here is my name right here, and this right here will be like a space, and this right here it will be my name right here is as close as like to what appears on my birth certificate. So with like the parents though, you have right here is the young mom and dad right here with the parents, and anybody that may warrant or if you're going to be collecting any type of financial aid and you're like warrant or that anything that expenses wise, and like $40,000 seems like a lot of money to a lot of us, and they're like warrant or that since I was young, and you're like warrant or you want to surprise your parents in any way, if you want to get involved in maybe say the Boy Scouts or maybe the choirs or something like that, or a musical group going on at the school, and you may have heard that before to where the mom and the dad are going to say something like, I'm so proud of you, son. And really, that sometimes that you may think it's toward, well, it ain't nothing. Well, I don't know what you're proud of me of, because on your hand, that it was like, compared to all the other kids there, that all the other students, that they may performed a little bit better, but on your hand, I keep thinking about is to where that if you attend an event going on up there at the school, and that the parents are going to be looking at you while you're going to be doing something such as maybe in the dances or maybe the choir or anything like that, and sometimes though that you may not a situation that comes up to where that you probably like say if that's going to be we saw a son or daughter who's going to be in the choir or maybe at the play, or if it's going to be anything else maybe related to graduation or something like that, and think about as to where that with the parents though that they more likely want to see their kids as taking responsibility for the stuff that they need to do especially. But then one of those could be maybe something that's related to like maybe graduation besides taxes, maybe for graduation especially, to where if you don't have everything planned ahead of time and don't have everything arranged and knowing about for how you're able to work on that. But I also keep thinking too as to where that during the time if you're going to be traveling anywhere and thinking about is to where you're going out to maybe a certain town, you're doing a certain part of state, and thinking as to where like graduation that last time you may have been in St. Louis, maybe to attend the St. Louis Zoo, or maybe to go to the Science Center or somewhere like that. But then thinking about is toward it, a lot of the parents who will be going out to the St. Louis County, or maybe say knowing about anything that's going on in St. Louis County or where like that, would be like related to the sun. So you're like wondering to where you have right here is for sun right here, the sun right here with me right here, and like I say knowing about what the parents are thinking about is to where well, kids grow up so fast, don't they? But then on your hand, and knowing about anything that keeps the parents busy with also. But On the other hand, one thing I did want to mention about is about the finances as well, as to where that a lot of things that maybe I don't quite understand, and with jobs especially. And I know that whenever I first got my first job, that I know that the parents, like the mom or dad or anybody, like maybe the cousins or so, aunts or uncles who maybe weren't, to where that about a little bit of details about the job especially. And one of the details that they may ask is to where that yeah, that do you have a business card, as well as do you get paid vacation or anything like that. But on the other hand, that like with anybody, that if you're going to be working a job and going to school at the same time, and then knowing about the type of graduation ceremonies or anything like that go on, and you're like wanting to where, hey, that got all that arranged yet, and then as well as that like warrant to where that you may be concerned about that, to where you'll be missing about maybe a day or two of work or so, or and whenever graduation does come around, and then that a son or daughter, or especially the son, would more likely get nervous about that, as to where that they may be worried that they're going to maybe get a little bit behind on taking care of something else due to graduation. So really, that I guess if a lot of those other responsibilities are what you call dismissed, just because of graduation, and like with anybody that especially on graduation, if it's going to be maybe parking, or if it's going to be guests or anything like that. But on the other hand, that talk about, say, for parents though, if it's going to be for financial aid, especially, that a lot of stuff that they say it's kept confidential as well. But if you want to go in and maybe list any information about the parents as well, and you're like wanting to where maybe not everything about the parents that you may know about, and one of those will be is like maybe the jobs, and as well as for anything about for what they do especially. And like with me though, that whenever I look at a lot of the paperwork, that I can remember a lot of those children's books that they only contain about maybe 8 or 12 pages or so of reading paragraphs, until you get all that paperwork in file about financial aid and stuff. And it's like the student finances, and then you're like Warren Tour, that you understand it, but then you're like Warren Tour back whenever you were about 5 or 10, that you may not understand a lot of it. So you may think about it, as to where it's kind of neat just to kind of look at it if it's related to you. I'm like, if it's related like with the parents though, that they may have not have had all that paperwork, if they even like looking at the paperwork. And you're like Warren Tour, that with the parents though, the parents, like the mom or the dad, that may ask to see some papers, or maybe they want to ask to see the certificate. They may want to ask to see something that's what you call related to, like what you call awards or some kind, or if anything maybe like to the grade book. And I know, like with anybody, the parents would probably like to look at the grade book especially. So knowing about ever since the child was born. And I know with me though, that I kept thinking about, as to where that whenever I was born, it seems like to where I just appeared in the world, and think about to where really what do the parents expect from their son to do. And sometimes they're like Warren Tour, that really they concentrate mainly on maybe getting involved with maybe the sports and other activities going on at the school. But then one of those was like about art, and it's like art and be creative. So that's just a thing about me though, is to where that I keep thinking about, is to where that anything that such as field trips. And if anybody warns us to where that there's going to be a field trip planned, to where if it's going to be anything about graduation, the graduation ceremony is going to be about here located up south, or up north or so, that's about maybe 100 miles away, and thinking that to where that that almost everybody almost everybody's going to look forward to field trip, even the parents. The parents will probably say that, well, mom or dad, I think you're a little bit too old for that, aren't you? But on the other hand, that if anybody, if like the parents though, if it's going to be the parents that are likely warrant to, if they're going to be invited to come to attend a field trip, and they're more likely like warrant to, or like the field trip, okay. Look at it as a field trip. Oh, the graduation. Oh, okay, yeah, the graduation's going to be in maybe parts of in Chicago, or maybe if it's going to be in Iowa or state of Iowa or somewhere, anywhere where it's going to go. And you're like, what types of attention that more likely the son would more likely get? That whenever think about his tour, that back before that the son was even big enough to wear maybe a size 13 or 14 t-shirt or anything like that, or maybe pants, that you're like warned to her that yeah, that a lot of the stuff that's going on about the son or daughter, and like you have right here is like with the son right here. So whenever I'm looking at a lot of the paperwork, I'm also thinking about is to her that a lot of stuff which I understand a little bit of it, but still that you know that with the parents though that a lot of the paperwork about references especially that if you're going to maybe list the mom or dad and you're like warrantor that any information that they provide as well, it's like for anything that the son's able to provide as well. But on the other hand, if the situation where it comes to where the mom or dad, the parents, that they don't know too much about how to work this or how to work that, and then knowing about anything that's related to like financial aid or any other type of update as well. So if most of us have heard that before to where that a lot of phone calls were not related to, they were related to the son, but during that time, it was to say that they need to talk to the adult. They need to talk to the person who's at least 18 years of age or older, but then thinking about it to where some of those phone calls to where the son was able to take as well. So whenever the phone rang those couple years ago, it was like, that they wanted to call and speak to the mom or maybe the dad or somebody, and like warrantor that yeah, for whoever that's paying for this or whoever that's attending, but I know in a lot of times that they usually say is to where that whoever's 18 years of age or older, they would be able to it's like you to do an interview. So and I can remember whenever I did turn 18, and I can remember a lot of things that I did, and that was what you called it. I kind of call it, it's like it was the golden birthday because you born on July 18th, and like I say, on my 18th birthday, so that was a way to how to celebrate. And if anybody were warned, or like I explained before, about what's going to be going on, by July 18th, 2018, and I know that I mentioned before is tour that's basically what you call the time the year tour that knowing about is tour that for and to think about a number of things that we're able to accomplish and a lot of things that's going to be going on within the next few months especially. It's like if it's going to be what you call jobs and as well as for careers goes. So you're like Warren toward knowing about with the parents about how proud the parents would be about his tour that they look at their son and think about his tour. The amount of years is tour that whenever he was that little boy right there in those cutie little socks right there, with that little outfit of his, and think about his tour that he would watch TV, especially on a Saturday night, that he would watch TV and do stuff, play with Lincoln Logs and stuff until he actually grows up and find out that he's going to be a designer. And like with anybody, that whenever they look at their kids and think about that, that's your original photo right there. And then this right here is your picture right here from the fourth grade and then from the fifth grade. And thinking about it to where a lot the field trip, and you're like Warren to where yeah, that field trip to be proud of especially. So think about it to where that a number of people who are going to be attending a graduation especially, and as well as for the finances, that maybe not everybody knows for sure about $40,000, and like with the parents though that they're like warrantor that anything that's related to school or so, and you're like warrantor that anything about goes on with the son, that the son with me right here, that something that I'm doing that more likely that nobody else maybe it's like if it's going to be friends or family that nobody else that really knew or understood about really what it was. So you're like warrantor that yeah, if you were to play the lottery, then more likely that you may win some money. But on the other hand, that if you get a good job that pays good, and thinking about it to her that yeah, that you start you say you get a business card as well as anything else that and any other good opportunities especially. So, but on the other hand, I talk about say with the parents though. The parents as well as like maybe even with the grandparents, they may say is to her that yeah, that after the uncle, that more likely after he gets his he grows up, the son grows up, and then he's an uncle, and think about it to her that after he gets his degree in digital designing, and then the parents want to know a little bit more about this career and study about the professional work, about how does it work, and then you may have somebody on the other side of the family who's like saying this to where that they want to go to that school and get into they want to get their degree in designing. So you're like Warren Tour that really about who's going to be what you call that favorite member of the family in the history, such as from the past 20 years or so, and thinking about his tour that the son the son's gonna he grows up and he's gonna get his degree in designing and some that may say is toward it, yeah, that think about is toward that the next person's going to maybe want to get their degree in designing and thinking it possibly could be what you call somebody younger, much younger, and thinking about is toward yeah, it could be a little junior over there and thinking that somebody that gets their degree in designing and somebody else who wants to get their degree in designing, and you may mention that even on financial aid as to where that yeah that my uncle who was a designer and now and think about it as to where 10 years or so from now and thinking about as to where somebody else who wants to get that degree in study as well, but I don't know. I'm like, if anybody weren't, to where if it's really anything to be getting jealous about, especially to where you get to, like that, the son that gets his degree in study and think about is to where that, yeah, and then now somebody else that wants to get their degree, they want to get their promotion as well. So the way I would do my hands right here is if I were to be holding something in my hand, and this right here could be maybe a letter from the school, especially. And if anybody say that that letter that maybe not everybody has heard of it, and I think about is to where you thought that maybe a lot of stuff was all made up about is to where that anything that you created and as well as you designed and then think about as to where it was promoted that there was a company that took interest in what I do and now a lot of people, maybe over 40 people or so are now kind of wondering about that. They looked at your profile and they say they want to look at it as like a gold monument as to where that they something that comes to their immediate attention, and so now they want to do a few interviews or so with you. So you're like wanting to that type of attention, which I'm not quite used to right away, but at the time it seems like to where that the only I guess the best thing I can really say about it is to where that making sure that it's knowing about is to where anything that we do decide to do, it's like anything that we do decide to do in life is to try to think about is to where to be proud of it, and as well as knowing as to where that it's like try not to think about is to where like anything that it's fun also, but then on your hand too that there's going to be what you call this policy, this rule about how to use it, especially. So you're like Warren toward it. After you graduate, you want to go out and have a party or some sort, but they say that maybe 2 or 3 parties per year, or maybe 1 party per month or so will be allowed. But on your hand, that knowing about for any students, you go out and get a job, and like with anybody that they may warrant toward it, they want to go out and have fun, and for after they work real hard, especially, and you're like Warren to where that yeah, well, what does that usually mean about us tour that by the time you do get a job, and then thinking that that really people are going to keep constantly asking you questions and for anything that you do really, and you're like Warren to where that you didn't think anything of it, but other than it's to where that yeah, the parents who raised me, and as well as for the parents, if it's going to be the mom and her dad, and as well as for anybody else that that knowing about is like to where I may not be what you call smart and a genius, but I am what you call that person to where that I try to think twice before I do something as well. So just think about it to where how hard that we work, if we do realize that we made a mistake later on, but for like Warren to where that anybody that may Warren to where that whenever before you start working on something, and you just really have to think twice before you actually do something, and you're like worried to where, well, don't worry about it. Like if you're thinking it's worried about that or that, but on your hand, that talk about here is like talk about with the parents though. We'll say for the mom and the dad as well with me right here, and I keep thinking always like, why is it that there's a space between the C and then the G right here, the C and the G, and that kind of appears on my birth certificate, and anybody that may warrant toward it, yeah, besides my birth certificate going digitally, electronically viewed, maybe even on, it's like not online, but anybody likely warrant to where if they're going to have a lot of this digital stuff, but I'm sure something about maybe the parents are going to probably want to know a little bit about this digital designing stuff. Since I was young, I was really good. I was really what you call that person who was really into the electronics, like I may have mentioned before. And one of those electronics more likely would be is the television set. So anybody that may warrant to where, yeah, a lot of what you do that's like, yeah, that you may have had a favorite TV show from a while back, and you're like warrant to where, besides a radio, besides maybe a little walkie-talkie, that you had the television set as something, what you call it, electronic wise, and you're like warrant to where that this career that you could be getting into, like for digital designing, and you're gonna have maybe the parents or anybody else, they're gonna maybe be asking about a little bit about what you do, and then they're going to maybe want you to do a project for them. So if anybody were warrant to where that maybe not only are the clients going to put you to work, but maybe the parents and maybe that anybody else, your friends and family, they're going to maybe put you to work for whatever they want to see as well. So seems like at the time you're like, I didn't know it was all included in the same package. But we may be concerned about that too, as to where that a package, something that's going to be contained in the same package, that more likely that's going to maybe last for about maybe the next 10 or 15 years. And that's something, I guess you could say, that's something to feel proud of, especially even though if what you call it, if you're going to be the little brother or so of a sibling, and you're like warrant to her that he's been in the arts since he was young, and now since he's going to be getting his degree in designing and knowing about us to where how to respect that, especially it's like especially with the parents though, that think about us to where about if it's going to be maybe the finances especially, but I'm sure like the parents would probably show as much love and support as they can, especially with the son. And the first thing that they may mention about is to where that they can remember, the son or daughter. It's like if it's going to be the son is going to, it's like they remember him whenever he was about only 2 or 3, like pushing that bubble lawnmower around, and as well as with the coloring book, and knowing about that, other things that more likely that they were concerned about, especially, that yeah, he was what you call, he was in the Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and all those other characters, especially, and especially with the cartoons, and finally not realize that his future job that he's going to be what you call for digital designing. So just think about it to where the new type of study, new career that more likely that they say that a lot of people that may not know how it all works until that they actually look at some of the examples of projects that I may have worked on, especially. So that type of attention that I can remember that I wanted since I was a kid, and think about by the time you actually get it, and sometimes it's like, people like warrant to where that, yeah, that, what do you call too much attention, huh? You may have gotten that type of attention, especially on your birthday, but didn't think it about as to her that by the time you graduate and get a job, and that you're like warrant to her that you're going to have people that are going to be want to ask you questions, and sometimes it's like, like I know a little bit of information about that, but yeah, and I know I can tell anybody here that even though if something happened a long time ago, even though if something happened about a year ago, that somebody may come up to me and ask me about that, and like the first thing that you may mention is to her, yeah, that was a long time ago, but yeah, I remember that, working on that project or so. So anybody that may warrant to her, even something that you were working on, a long time ago, maybe 5 years ago, and somebody wants to ask about it, and thinking necessarily to her that, yeah, that, any information that they may want to, get as well. But anyway, but there you have it. Talk and say for the parents and knowing understanding about the son as well. I'd like to say for Manny 25, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.